excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the states in Nigeria. And they say the people's mandate must be respected, and of course the people's choice must be voted into office. And of course the capacity for achieving this and the responsibility lies not only on the shoulders of the electoral body and the government, but also the people who are going to be voting in the people. Again, I say welcome to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kike. I remain your convener, Kike not more Atanda. Yes, and I think it's important for us to hear what on this day in history segment has for us. When I return, I'll come and give my opinion or my perspective on this day in history segment. Stay with me, I'll be right back.
On this date in history, 14th November 1978, having invaded Tanzania, Uganda dictator Idi Amin learns that his generals have not prepared for a Tanzanian counter-offensive. Instead, like their Ugandan troops, they are busy looting occupied Tanzanian territory. Also, fearing the Soviet Union might ship weapons to Tanzania, Amin bluffs by saying Ugandan forces have withdrawn from Tanzania. Choosing to believe Amin's lie, the Organization of African Unity congratulates itself on its mediation efforts.
All right, many thanks for staying with me. This incident prompts reflection, if you ask me, especially on the role of leaders and their accountability. And I feel that Amin's bluff and the subsequent response from the OAU, highlights the challenges of verifying information in the midst of crises. And of course, in today's intercontinental world, we know leaders are under increased scrutiny, and the consequences of false statements, can also cannot be far-fetched or can have far-reaching implications on diplomatic trust and public trust as well. So I think that's my take on this day in history segment. It's important for us to hear a message from our sponsors. Let's get to hear what they have for us. And when I return, we'll go straight to the topic at hand. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has held the first off-cycle poll since the 2023 general election, with Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi states residents deciding on their governors for new four-year terms. And of course, the disturbing report of high levels of results, falsification, and of course other forms of electoral irregularities in the governorship election in the three states that raises serious questions about the credibility of elections and the future of democracy in Nigeria. And Nigerians had expected that the lessons learned from the 2023 general elections by stakeholders, particularly the Independent National Electoral Commission, would have been taken to some level of improvement with all the conduction that is taking place now during this election. And of course the rising contention Nigeria has with off-cycle elections have taken controversial stage, given the anomalies, odds, and factors that have that stand against the credibility and the appropriateness of such elections in our democratic system. And this development leads to another needful discussion about electoral contours in our system. And on the live show today, I will be engaging with respect to the timing of the news at hand, and of course the legal implication and the political contentions and the controversies attached to the off circle election in our electoral system. But before I delve further, it's important for us to check the profile of our guests. Unfortunately, our main guest today could not, make it because he's in a meeting with the Commission, British Embassy rather, but we have a representative from the organization for YIAGA Africa, who is Safiya Bichi, head of knowledge management. She will be throwing a lot of light on the issue at hand. I think it's important for us to just go straight to the to connect with our guest right now. Are you there?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm here.
Yeah, good afternoon. Many thanks for connecting with us. If Paul James was able to make it to the studio, this would have been maybe the second or third time. I know the last time he featured on this platform was May, but it's a good thing to have you today. Safiya, I hope I pronounced your name properly. You are the head of knowledge management, I believe, right?
Yes, please.
All right, fantastic. Many thanks again for creating time to be with us. So let's just go straight to the topic at hand, because there's a discussion about the time limitation set by the 2010 Electoral Act for determining election petitions and the need for further amendments. One is advocating for extended time limits to ensure fair hearing, and another is also suggesting a review to ensure quicker resolution before officials assume office. What's your position on these two opinions or perspective that I've given you right now?
Okay, I think for me, it's neither here nor there. We could adopt the process as it is done in countries like Kenya, where election election tribunal or legal issues surrounding elections are done immediately and concluded before swearing into the office. But again, the question is to ask if the timeline, because already at the moment there's a timeline to which all election petitions must be heard and concluded, even though it's spilled into the new, it's spilled into the tenureship of whoever is announced winner at the time an election is concluded. But the question is, even though, as we're encouraging or pushing for a lesser time limit, we should ask ourselves, is this time enough for people to get the justice they might deserve or not? We understand that there are lots of people that were able to reclaim their mandate through court judgment, and it went the other way for some people. But for myself, the most important thing is, let's give them enough time. I personally don't think the time we have now is too bad, because for anybody that is contesting for the office of an executive, for an executive position, they usually have their period of 4 years. That's the reason why we have off cycles. So what are the challenges? Why are we so keen about that? What I think we should do, or we should focus our energy on, is recommending and for establishment of electoral offense commission that will be in charge and of prosecuting electoral offenders, so that some of these occurrences, some of these issues we're seeing will not come up. There are people that are sabotaging the process, which is also leading to some of the court cases we're having and some of the court resolution we're having. We need to bring those people to book. By the time we bring those people to book, it will deter people from carrying out electoral malpractices. So for me, is let's focus our energy on punishing and deterring electoral offenders.
For that insight right there. So focusing on the issue at hand, I know that Jonathan Goodluck, the former president, says that if we continue with this trend of off-season election based on the interpretation of our laws, it will come to a time that the presidential election will be off-season. Do you also foresee this?
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having off-season elections. That's my personal opinion. We are working in a federal, this is a federal system of government. We must all not have the same tenureship, and as such, every state can have its own elections. In fact, the laws in America varies, electoral laws in America varies from state to state. And if that's the case, why can't ours be different? Why can't ours flow in that? And this is the beauty of federalism. We must all not all have our state elections at the same time. But again, why I was also focusing on issues around electoral offenses is because if we start this, it hinders people from carrying out electoral malpractices, and it will also hinder us from having these for it will prevent us from having the presidential elections as an off-season elections, because you are trying to put a hindrance to some of the things that leads to the off seasons that we're seeing. Most of or majority of the reasons why we have off-season elections are electoral malpractices. If we can stop or put stop on electoral malpractices, then of course some of these challenges will not be reoccurring. So that's the reason why I'm saying that we should focus ourselves on hindering and deterring electoral malpractices. If that is being done, the results from the poll will always be reflected uh, uh, as when the ballot is announced.
Okay, I hear you, but I just feel that the National Assembly has to find a way to block off all these off-season elections. How do they do it, knowing that virtually all elections in Nigeria and even developed countries are mostly contented in court? What's your take on this?
So the only way they can block this is to uh, reduce the levels of appeal for the governorship. As it is now, the levels for appeal for all others are just one level. For presidential governorship is just one. Sorry, presidential house of and legislature is just one appeal. It's only the governorship that has three appeals. What they can do is in the next reform to create to merge the layer to just two layers after the tribunal. Then there'll just be one appeal, not two appeal, as the case may be at the moment. That's one way they can do that. But secondly, the question is, how do you achieve that? Our election democracy is still growing. We also need to give people the opportunity to to contest the election result. And it will shock you to know that our elections are one of the elections in the world that has the most uh, electoral that has the most that goes to tribunal the most. A lot of countries in South Africa, that's not the case. In the US, that's not the case. And the problem is, even is in our climate, even in a situation where people know that yes, they did not win the election, they always feel like there's a window of opportunity for them to bypass the process and probably get an advantage over the other. I think it's beyond the legal reforms. We should go back to also our political education. People must understand that you must not contest for every election. People must have the mind to accept defeat. They should understand that election is a competition. But again, you not blame them if you know the resources that goes into elections. If you know how much politicians are winning. I remember somebody mentioned that if a politician wins election, it's like he lost his son because of the resources that goes into. And that's the reason why you see people fighting to their nail to ensure that they are there. And because again, on the other hand, is the issue around our winner takes all system and mentality. We don't have a proportional system of government. We have a winner takes all system of government. Once the winner wins, he has everything. And whether you come second or third, you don't have anything. So except we also want to rejig that and have a proportional system of government where and there are different systems in the world. There's a system where the percentage of votes cast you got called percentage of votes called will determine your influence or your level of presence in the administration. So these are some of the things we need to look at. Except we look at it holistically, but if we just look at it as a straight jacket or a one line thing to say that we need to just reduce the age and the timeline and ensure that people finish their court issues within a period of time. We're not going to get it. I remember that aside tribunal, there are pre-election matters, which are heard in other matters that are heard in separate courts, not even the tribunal. I remember by also in 2019, the issue was not even a tribunal issue. There are different issues. People could go based on the issue of forgery, and this might be addressed in a different, not necessarily the electoral tribunal, which would in turn affect the outcome of the elections. And so these are some of the things we need to look at. I think it's for us to sit back and look at it holistically. What are the gaps? What should we do? And in order to look at it holistically, for me, is to look at the appeal levels. We can reduce all appeal level, make all appeal level to be one appeal, so that the hearing will be done within a shorter period of time. One. Then secondly, to also look at having a system where you can deter some of these election malpractices, that is developing or establishing electoral offense commission that will address some of these issues. Then on the other hand, is to look at, is to also engage in some level of political education. Then finally is to consider if we're going to review our system to a proportional system of government, so that it will not be a do or die affair as a result of the winner take all system that is in place.
Thanks again for that elaborate submission right there. I have two questions for you, and before we go into the nitty-gritty of the elections that just ran, off-circle elections or not, as the head of knowledge management, YIAGA Africa, in your own assessment, is it a welcome substitute for inconclusive elections with anomalies or tribunal judgments? That's my first question to you. And my second question to you, because of time, is the fact that I feel that INEC has a role to play in all of this. You know, for example, we all witnessed what happened in Osun State with Governor Adeleke of PDP, and of course the previous governor of Governor Adegboyega. Should we be amending electoral laws again, or should we be empowering INEC more in scenarios of inconsistency like this? Did you hear me?
Sorry, I think, yeah, I can hear you. I think I lose some part of the conversation, but what I got was if we should continue to empower INEC. I think what we should be looking at is unbundling INEC, and that's the reason why some of us are recommending for Electoral Offense Commission. We need to unbundle INEC. INEC at the moment, based on the current structure, has the mandate of to prosecute electoral offenders. INEC is the same person that is responsible for regulating political parties' engagement. INEC is at the same time responsible for election management. We need to unbundle that commission so that it can operate effectively on one hand. On the other hand, should we go for reforms? Yes, I think based on some of the challenges and feedback thrown to us from these elections and even from some of the court rulings, it shows there's a need for us to go back to the legal framework to review it. And there's something about legislation. We cannot be tired of reviewing our legislative processes, because laws are living. They metamorphose after as time goes on. And you agree with me that even our systems, political system, economic system, and even with the introduction of technology and other new forms of engagement is one of the reasons why we also need to also review our laws to meet up to some of these global demands. And my submission would be, yes, there's an opportunity based on some of these findings and outcomes. We need to go back to the drawing board and review the laws to address some of the challenges or gaps we've seen from the electoral law. And you know that our political class, our politicians are very smart people. What I found out in the last 8 months is that they actually do a review of the electoral laws to explore the existing gaps in the electoral laws to their own advantage. So these are some of the things we also need to consider. But again, there's no any electoral law that is a silver bullet to election management or election result management. The only thing we need to do aside that is to change our mentality and again hold people to account. If people are not held to account, this will continue to go on, and the culture of impunity in terms of in terms of election management and others will continue till the end. So these are some of the things we need to consider. And yes, for me, we need to go back to drawing board ahead of 2027. We need to look at what are the gaps based on Supreme Court pronouncement, so based on some of the actions taken by INEC as regards to the election day management and some of the things we've seen thrown to us. And these election reforms should go beyond INEC. When we're talking about electoral reform, she goes beyond the institution INEC. There are other sister institutions that are supporting election day management. We should also do a holistic review of that and look at what are their contributions, how should we legislate their contribution or their support to election day management.
Many thanks again for that elaborate submission right there. We'll go on a quick break and get a word from our sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Stay with me. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. In case you just joined today's show on Real Talk with Kike, I have been discussing the intricacies of the recent offshore off-circle governorship elections in Bayelsa, in Imo, and of course in Kogi states as well. In this election, you know, we've witnessed sweeping of victories, you know, extensive logistics, logistical operations, and of course the participation of multitude of political parties, you know, the northern emancipation of network ills, and of course the elections as flawless as like my guests have said. The candidates have been able to at least go into strategy to know where the flaws are, while the Nigerian civil society situation room deem them is a setback for democracy. Giving us Real Talk is the head of knowledge management on YIAGA Africa, that is Safiya Bichi, who has been throwing light on the issue at hand. And I must say many thanks, Safiya, for all that you've shared thus far. You know, but let me quickly use this opportunity to open the phone lines for those who want to, you know, ask you questions or who want to be part of this conversation. Remember, the phone line to call is 080-988-77400, showing on your screen right now. And of course, we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, both on Real Talk with Kike and on Silverbird platform. And Safiya, let me come to you, because I would like to quote Professor Wole Soyinka with all that you've shared thus far. You know, Professor Wole Soyinka was of the opinion that ignoring substantive justice and validating Tinubu's questionable election based on technicalities, you know, the Supreme Court gave him legal victory but denies him legitimacy. What sort of legitimacy has the court denied him based on your own knowledge, you know, knowing that you are the head of knowledge for management in YIAGA Africa? You know, what's your knowledge in this area of election, and how does that impact our political landscape?
So, to be honest, I cannot say that I can really interpret what the very respectful Professor Wole Soyinka meant by saying that he did not get the legitimacy by the ballot. I'm not a fan of the president, or I'm not also someone that is, I'm not a supporter of Tinubu, and I'm not a hater of Tinubu. And probably by the virtue of my role in elections, I'm neutral. But he was already declared victorious from the election. What the court did was probably to also affirm the result as announced by INEC. But the question is, have people also gone back to do an analysis of some of these court judgment before making some of the statements or responses they are making? I understand that people are saying some of them are based on technicalities, but I think it's also, if you do a quick analysis, you see that for some it's beyond technicalities. For instance, I've seen an appeal stating that there was voter suppression. And you ask me, how do you intend to prove voter suppression, for God's sake? If you're saying that, for instance, the polling unit has all the voters in the polling unit were disenfranchised, they were unable to vote, and if they were to vote, they're supposed to vote for you. How do you also, are you going to line all of them in the court ask them. So these are some things that are difficult to prove. And again, some other issues that were being raised at the tribunal. I understand that there are other issues around his legitimacy to contest for elections, his certificate and others, which might be not necessarily be an issue for the tribunal. Some of them might be a pre-election issue. Some of them might also, it depends on which school of thoughts you're coming when it comes to the legal proceeding. But for me, it is what it is. The court has affirmed what is being announced by INEC. Even though this election seems to be different, because if you look at the majority of people that turn out to vote in the elections did not vote for the winner of the elections. This is the first time we're having this in our own client. He has, I think, over 8,000 votes. And if you match the vote of the Labour candidate and the Labour Party and the PDP, you see that they have it's higher than the votes scored by Tinubu. So it also means that though he's the winner of the election, based on popularity, he did not appeal to majority of the voters that turn out to vote, and it is understandable that some of the reactions we saw could possibly happen. But again, we are one country. Our responsibility is to support and ensure that we are our country must survive beyond Tinubu's administration. And of course, it's not going to be there forever. We've seen what happened in the US. Trump came and he's gone, and he's likely to come back. And it's just for everybody to do his own bit. And as citizens, we should move past the election fever. We should start holding them accountable. What were his campaign promises? That's where I'm looking at. What did he say he's going to do? And for those things he promised to do, should we not start holding him accountable so that if he does not fulfill his promises and does not perform, we should be able to go there and put it out for other citizens that do not have the opportunity to also track some of this performance, so that come 2027 they will make their decision, and that decision might be in the affirmative of his own current position, or might go the other way around.
Again, for that insight right there. But let me touch on the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, because the recent off-cycle elections in Imo and Bayelsa and Kogi states, pointed out all the challenges such as violence, armed thuggery, electoral fraud, logistical issues reported by the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria, that's the HURIWA, while the Northern Emancipation Network as well described the elections as flawless, commends INEC and security personnel for being neutral. How important is civil society, in terms of feedback in shaping the perception of electoral integrity?
Okay, so I just want to understand that this description, is it based on the general elections or the just Saturday concluded elections?
Can you hear me?
It was breaking. So my question is, this feedback from the civil society community or the says that the election was flawless, was it for the Saturday November 11 elections, or for the general elections that was conducted in February and March?
November 11 general election.
Okay, November 11 general elections was quite interesting in different ways. First is that for INEC, there's been some significant improvement, and I'm starting from a positive light. If you observe that the logistic deployment for the 3 states were of great improvement across board, then secondly, INEC was to an extent, especially in Kogi, was very prompt to communicating and responding to some of the issues at hand. For instance, the issue around pre-filled election results, which INEC immediately, a few hours into the elections, give a statement, and as well as the plan for the November 18th elections. But again, there are a few gaps, and these gaps are mostly around the attitude of political parties. Again, our political class is showing us that the elections is a do or die affair, and they are not ready to give room for a fair context across the three states. We've witnessed a lot of violence in the states. We've witnessed a lot of election malpractices across board, from Kogi, Imo, and even Bayelsa State, to a situation where these were done with high level of impunity, even as considered to some of the general elections that happened in November. So this on this hand, it's very very disturbing, and again, some of the actions taken by some officials, INEC officials, were also disturbing, and that's why we called on INEC to prosecute, to launch an audit of all that happened in the elections and prosecute offenders.
Apologies, I have to interrupt your line of thought. We have a caller from Enugu. Sorry for keeping you waiting. What's your name and where are you calling from? Okafo, yes, many thanks for calling. What's your contribution on the topic at hand?
Calling you from Enugu State. Yeah, I'm calling from Enugu.
Okay, what's your contribution on the topic at hand?
My contribution is that I thank God for this election. You understand? Yeah, my contribution. Are you hearing me?
Go ahead, please. I can hear you loud and clear.
My contribution is that for years now we have been suffering in terms of governorship or presidency. We have been suffering in this country. And I'm a youth in this country. This is my 2 years now in this country. I've been seeing things going bad in this country every day. Things are not going the way it should go in this country. And every of us in this nation, we know that we are suffering and smiling, and everybody just keeping quiet, maybe afraid of death or somebody killing him or her. It is good that we have this election and nobody dies in nobody this insecurity in the United States. It's good, but I'm very sad that I'm in Nigeria and things will be going bad in this country. And most of us who are privileged cannot talk, because maybe when you talk, they'll come and kill you on us. I was born in a very poor background. I grew up. I didn't even go to school. Go from my background. But 2 years now. I didn't even have a good governorship, a good president in this country. I would have been privileged to go to school. But headed by the president of this nation, or the governors of this nation. But they are there for their own pockets. They will come and they will win the election, and they will win the election, and they will focus on in their own pockets. And also, they know that, okay, we don't have a good system in this country. They will take their children to school in abroad. You get me? So what I'm saying is that I don't.
Many thanks, Okafor, for lending your voice. Let me come to you, Safiya, because with all that you've shared thus far, and you've heard what my guests have said, looking at the logistics and the deployment for these off-cycle elections, conducted in Kogi, in Imo, in Bayelsa, about over 46,000 staff, were deployed, and from the research that I made, over 100, let's just say 126 organizations were accredited, yes, and over 92,000 as well of police personnel, were mobilized, and 80 media organizations. Wow, that's a lot right there. Can we say that more attention and staff that is allocated for these off-cycle elections make them more credible and well coordinated?
Say that more attention makes them makes it possible for people to hold the Electoral Commission and all other government institutions accountable. So this deployment makes us hold them accountable, not credible, because they could get this kind of attention and we still not be very, very accountable. And despite all this attention, the political actors cared less about this attention. They cared less about who was looking at them. All they cared was about their interests, and that was why they behaved the way they did in the elections. And it was quite unfortunate. But I can say that for the security agencies and INEC, perhaps having so many people deployed to the elections was able to put them in check and make them act a bit reasonable in some cases, even though in some instances, some things went the other way around. But you know that we have 7 days window for INEC to review some of these election results pronouncement. We're going to wait for the 7 days to see what will be INEC conclusion. But for myself, on the personal note, I wasn't very impressed with the conclusion in Kogi State, and this is my reasons. I know that based on the issue around margin of lead, and that was what INEC in Kogi State quoted to say that they are concluding or announcing the winner, returning the winner based on margin of lead. For me, they would have just waited. Let's conclude the November 18th election before they announce the winner, because this announcement could also discourage people from turning out to exercise their franchise, even though they're given the opportunity to contribute or make their voice known through the ballot.
Thanks. I like the fact that, you know, you actually also, you know, gave your own personal opinion regarding Kogi State, and of course the accountability aspect of it. You know, it's not about credibility but the accountability. But talking about way forward now and the improvement and the same accountability that you've touched on earlier, because the Situation Room also calls for an independent audit of election admission in Nigeria. What measures from your own perspective can be taken to address these identified setbacks and improve future electoral processes?
The only ambiguous measure is to ensure that people are held accountable, people are brought to book. Unless you do that, this will continue, and it will continue and go in a larger scale, because I do it today, I go scot-free. Tomorrow, someone join me and the team grows bigger. Next tomorrow, it continues that way. So except people are brought to book, this will continue. So this is what we need to do, because someone did this. Some of the challenges we had, some of the gaps we saw from the elections were being orchestrated by people who pre-filled those election results, under whose possession were the election results, who was responsible for those election results. These people should be brought to book. We cannot leave these people to go scot-free. These are some of the things we need to do. Like I said, it is not just to prosecute them, not just for them to be held accountable, but it will serve as deterrence for other people not to do it. So this is the biggest thing that needs to be done. And that's the reason why we're saying that the prosecution of electoral offenders should be at the forefront. We're able to achieve issues around logistics. Now we need to also hold people accountable, so that the off-cycle elections that are coming up in Edo and Ondo should not face the kind of challenges of the kind of impunity we saw. And what I would like to say is that there's also something unique about the Kogi and Bayelsa elections. Imo is just joining the off-cycle election for the first time. But it seems like the Kogi and Bayelsa election is beginning to thrive on impunity. It's if you look at the records from 2019 to date, they are one of the off-cycle elections or off-season elections that records the number of critical incidences, be it violence, be it election, some actions taken to rig the elections as compared to all elections. We need to put a stop to that, and an audit of these entire processes will bring a long solution to some of these things we've seen. If not, it will continue in this trend, and political actors in those states will think that is a tea party in every election, that they can do as they wish and they can get away with it freely.
Again, for all your elaborate submission out there, and I think this might be my last question to you right now, because I need your opinion or perception or perspective rather on public perception and trust and the lessons learned thus far, you know, because Nigerians expected improvement based on lessons learned from the 2023 general elections. And with your opinion, what lessons can be drawn from these off-cycle elections to enhance the overall electoral processes in Nigeria?
I think, first of all, we have issues of trust in this country generally, be it in the elections or or outside elections. And I'll tell you, well, first time I went to Ethiopia, if you want to take a drink, they use bottle Coke and other drinks. They open the cover somewhere you don't know, and they just bring it without the cover for you. They open them randomly. So all you need to do is just to pick and start drinking. In Nigeria, you cannot open anybody's drink behind his back. So this is a common example of trust issues we have in this country. Now, coming to the experiences we've had and the kind of political actors we have in this country also makes it difficult for people to trust in the electoral process. But again, as civil society people, as media people, as opinion molders, we also need to start doing things differently. Let's not continue to go on media and be shouting and be saying all the negative things, only the negative things that happen in the elections. We also need to come out and outline the successes we've made in the elections. And that's why, if you observe, when you asked me about my feedback in the elections, I started with the gains we made in the elections before I went to discuss or to share some of the challenges or gaps we've experienced in the elections. While we're talking about the gaps in the elections, it's necessary for us to come out and say, these are the gains we've made in these elections, so that we will be able to build public confidence in the electoral process. The truth is that there's nothing better than election democracy. So if we continue to batter the image of election democracy, what are we calling for is anarchy, because there's no any other better system than what we have. I understand that people might be talking about development, but democracy is beyond development. It's about freedom of speech. It's about freedom of association. You can never get this in any system of government aside this. So we need to make this democracy work. It is like there's no option. That's the only option we have on the table. And if that's the only option we have on the table, we need to make it work. And the only way we can make it up is by holding people accountable and ensuring that the right thing is being done. And again, even the populists, we also need to start changing our mentality. Who are the ones selling their vote? Is the ordinary citizen on the street. So we also need to change our mentality and begin to do things in the right direction.
All right. Many thanks again for all your submission right there. I wish you the very best. But before I let you go, there's this last segment of the show that I call Trending Stories. These are stories that binds us as Nigerians. And this segment, the first trending story that caught my attention is that of the Saudi Arabia authorities that cancelled the visa of all the 264 passengers. And first off, I would like to approach this news from a protocol perspective, patriotic angle and a bilateral viewpoint. First off, from a protocol perspective, I spoke with the stakeholder for first-hand information, and they were of the opinion that Nigerian embassy in Jeddah said even the Saudi immigration personnel said they didn't know who cancelled the visas, but they were cancelled when when the airline were already airborne to Jeddah, and the airline airpiece was exonerated in all this as the advanced passengers pre-screening system, that's the APPS, which is live between both countries, would have screened out any invalid visa and of course its passengers, and the system accepted all affected passengers and passed them on. So those deported were I think 177 passengers, and Airpeace returned them back to Nigeria. And I like when you were talking earlier, Safiya, when you were talking about the media being the opinion molders, to build the public confidence and all of that. I just feel that, from the patriotic angle, I want to believe that there are some saboteurs, either from the Saudi or from our own end in Nigeria, but by all parameters, it is most likely that from the Saudi end, because all visas were checked and verified, before departure. So these are the likely encounters that I feel that Nigerians face when it comes to dealing with other rivals or from other operators in the same airline and aviation business. And it starts from somewhere, and I just learned that, you know, few hours ago, that Nigerian government had launched a probe into this. So because of that, I'll be waiting and hoping that they will give us something meaningful for why such situation happened. But who pays for these inconveniences is another angle that I would like to touch on, because so it has cost the passengers the cost of flights, personal service to throw and fro from flights. Secondly, from the fact that, you know, Nigerian blogs and news platforms always jump on sensational news, which is also what I touched on earlier from what you said regarding we media people being the opinion molders. You know, I do not understand that. Sometimes I feel that they also contribute to the issue at hand, because sensational news are the detriment of our national image. It could simply have been reported as Saudi deports 177 passengers with yet unverified reasons. That could have been a better headline. I was a victim of one silly headline that they had to put out there 2 weeks ago, talking about all sorts, because yet I just feel that we need to do better as media people, and also blogs as well. That's the reason why sometimes I try to always, you know, want to follow through with what government is saying, that, you know, we need to verify most of the things that we put in this internet, yet they still chose to include airpiece as if they were the cause of the issue. Isn't it time for us to start, you know, giving ourselves, or start giving ourselves some brain, so to speak? I like to remain real on this platform, because it's high time for us to start borrowing ourselves brain with what they have portrayed ourselves as a Nigeria to in the international global space. I actually think that it's now time for us to actually borrow ourselves some insolence. From the third perspective, because of time, which I feel is the bilateral viewpoint, I think, you know, instant deportation shouldn't be the way to go, even in such a case. You know, the authorities from Saudi should at least first confirm who cancelled the visas and the reason for cancellation. They should have told the path of rectification other than deportation or arrangement of new visas at the point of entry. So, for crying out loud, Tinubu barely just left the Middle East, even after a presidential Umar to Saudi, after having meeting with the Middle East country representative. So it doesn't speak well of such a visit when their president just paid a courtesy visit for fostering ties between Nigeria and the Middle East. So in the UK, just with a BRP card, you know, you will be able to do Umar, is it Umar they call it, without a visa in Saudi. So how about that? But they subject Nigerians to all sorts. They really need to reciprocate this respect, you know, that we give them, because Nigeria has the highest what they call it again? Is it not plegiomery? Across Africa, year in, year out. So what exactly is the issue? What are we saying? We fetch them the highest revenue from Africa. For God's sake, I just felt that the logistics aspect of this, the fact that they had to quickly act swiftly on it without not looking for how to rectify the issue at hand, was a no-no for me. I don't know what's your take on this trending, Safiya, is, before we go into the second trending. What's your take on this?
I think Nigerian government, through the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we need to step up, and we need to they need to fight for their citizens. For them to have this huge number of people having visa cancelled, one would have thought that they will investigate into the process than to take the action they took. And like you mentioned, it's like they're not doing Nigeria a favor. Nigerians are helping their economy. Nigeria need to take a stand. Nigeria need to take up some roles in order to win their lost glory. One of the things I think we also need to do, and the Ministry of Communication needs to also do, is to also collaborate with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and start putting out some of this information, so that internally we also understand why some of these things are happening. But at the moment, it's for us to also take a hold on sending people out for pilgrims, and perhaps doing that for a long time will also show them the importance of having Nigeria move into their country. Then secondly, remember that this is the same Saudi Arabia that came to shop for a pool of doctors from Nigeria. And it is our own doctors that are trained on a subsidized education fee by the Nigerian government that they're benefiting from. and still we're experiencing some of these things we're experiencing. Nigeria Nigerian government need to take a bold step. And you saw what happened a few months ago with the court case in UK. Perhaps Nigerian government might have to go legal if going diplomatic will not work. People that lost their resources need to be compensated. I have personally engaged in different international trips, and I know the millions of naira one will lose if your trips is being affected, the way it's been affected. Who pays for that? Because this is hard-earned money. People work for this money. Go and check for the cost of flights at the moment.
Absolutely. Many thanks, Safiya, for all you've shared, because Nigeria has the highest pilgrimage across Africa year in, year out. But putting that aside, let me quickly touch on the second trending story, because Nigerian breweries at 77, this, gladdens my heart. And in the illustrious journey spanning through 77 years, this remarkable milestone is not just a number for me. It is the years of commitment to providing exceptional beverages that transcend, boundaries, bringing people together. Nigerian breweries has become a household name beyond brewing, powers. Nigerian brewery stands as a symbol of corporate responsibility, extending its influence far beyond the bottle that we see. The company's robust CSR initiative, impactful campaigns, and groundbreaking entrepreneurial development workshops, including Ishe the Wo, from my radio program every Wednesday. The campaign of Omoluabi as well, exemplifying a commitment to societal progress and their initiative, particularly supporting widows, and also fostering societal values and echoing the dedication for making a positive impact on communities, that touch lives. A noteworthy note that I can keep going on and goes to their visionary partnership with the hospitality industry, further enriching the tapestry of experiences woven by Nigerian breweries. All these collaborations that I've just mentioned not only not only enhances the brands that reach out to them, or their contribution, or how they contribute to the flourishing local businesses and the economic at large. But this remarkable journey, 77, wouldn't be possible without the dedicated individuals who stand, as the driving force behind Nigerian brewery. A heartfelt thanks to the campaigns of value and professionalism, because I know that that's what they stand for. They've led, and just talking about professionalism and the people behind it, I would like to first use this opportunity to actually thank, their chairman, Mr. Igodalo, and of course the visionary marketing director, Mr. Emmanuel Oriaki. Acknowledgement also extend to Mr. Wasiu Abiola, quite a number of them, Fumi Ogubade, Funsho Ayeni, Laulu, Infobasi, Omotunde Adunusi, quite a number of them, Jennifer, who embody the spirit of the company. 77 years of brewing greatness is no joke. Lives like me have been touched and destinies have been changed. Mine as well have been changed. I want to say congratulations again to Nigerian breweries for this 77 years of being in business. There's no ease of doing business anywhere, but they've remained consistent with professionalism and bringing in leaders who have touched lives across the globe. I want to say congratulations. With that, I've come to the end of Real Talk with Kike, and I want to say many thanks to my resourceful guest, Safiya Bichi, who actually contributed to the topic at hand. She is the head of knowledge management in YIAGA Africa. Till I come your way next week. Oh no, on Thursday. Remain kind to one another, but catch me live tomorrow on Inspiration FM 92.3. My name remains Kike Lomatonda. Bye now.